I had given everything to Crimson and Veil, my wife's family business, for years. Long nights hunched over spreadsheets, endless meetings with suppliers, and every ounce of effort I could muster to make it grow. It wasn't just a job to me. It was a promise I'd made to Elara when we got married, a way to prove I belonged in her world. So, when she and her sister Cassandra called me into the boardroom that morning, I figured it was about the new expansion plans I'd been working on. I walked in with a stack of papers, ready to talk numbers, but the air felt wrong. Elara sat there, arms crossed, her face blank like she barely knew me. Cassandra leaned back in her chair, smirking like she'd just won something. "Julian," Cassandra started, her voice sharp and cold, "we're letting you go. We don't need lazy people dragging us down." Lazy? The word hit me like a slap. I'd been up until 2 a.m. the night before fixing a deal they'd almost botched. I glanced at Elara, waiting for her to say something, anything to defend me. She didn't. She just stared at the table, her fingers tapping lightly, like this was nothing to her. My chest tightened, but I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I forced a polite smile, the kind I'd used 1,000 times to smooth things over, nodded once, and said, "All right, good luck." Then I turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing in the silence they left behind. The rest of the day blurred past me. I drove home in a daze, the steering wheel slick under my palms from the sweat I didn't realize was there. Our house, hers really, with its marble floors and high ceilings, felt emptier than usual when I stepped inside. I dropped my keys on the counter and sank into the couch, staring at the ceiling. How could she do this? After 8 years of marriage, after all I'd poured into her family's company, she let Cassandra fire me like I was some random hire off the street. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of the spiral. It was a text from Marcus, the accountant who'd been with me through every late-night budget crunch. "Heard what happened," it read. "I don't think they read your contract." I frowned, rereading the words. My contract? I hadn't thought about it since I signed it years ago, back when Raphael, Elara's dad, was still running things. What did Marcus mean? I typed back a quick, "What's in it?" but he didn't reply right away. I leaned back, the gears in my head starting to turn. If there was something in there, something they'd missed, maybe this wasn't over yet. I got up and poured myself a glass of water, trying to shake the sting of Cassandra's words. Lazy. I'd rebuilt their supply chain from scratch when it collapsed 3 years ago. I'd landed the Peterson account, the one that kept us afloat during that rough patch. And Elara? She knew all of it. She'd seen me stumble home exhausted, kissed me goodnight when I fell asleep at the kitchen table with my laptop still open. Yet today, she didn't even look at me. I took a sip, the cold water doing nothing to ease the heat building in my chest. Was this her idea? Did she want me gone too? Or was she just too weak to stand up to Cassandra? I didn't know which hurt more. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. "Check the merger clause from the subsidiary deal. You're still tied to it." The subsidiary deal? 5 years ago, when we acquired that little tech firm to boost Crimson and Veil's patents. I'd been neck-deep in it, negotiating terms while Raphael clapped me on the back and called me his right hand. A merger clause? What did that even mean now? I set the glass down and rubbed my temples. The first flicker of hope, or maybe something darker, stirred inside me. I spent the next hour digging through old files in my home office, the ones I'd kept from back when I trusted Elara to have my back. The contract was buried in a folder labeled CNV Merger 2020, yellowed at the edges but still legible. I skimmed the pages, my eyes catching on legalese I barely understood, until I hit page 17. There it was, in black and white. My name listed as co-chairman of the subsidiary with full authority over its assets. Assets that included Crimson and Veil's intellectual property, trademarks, patents, the whole backbone of the company. My heart thudded. They couldn't fire me from that. It wasn't their call. I sat back, staring at the paper, a slow smile tugging at my lips. Not the polite one this time, but something real. They'd made a mistake, a big one, and they didn't even know it yet. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus. Found it. What now? His reply came fast. Sit tight. Let them figure it out. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the day shifting. They thought they'd cut me loose, but they just handed me the rope. All I had to do was wait. The morning after they fired me, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing, cutting through the quiet of the house like a knife. I rolled over. The bed was cold on Elara's side. She hadn't come home last night, probably crashing at Cassandra's after their little victory. The screen lit up with Raphael Vale's name, her father, the man who'd built Crimson and Vale from nothing and trusted me with it when I married into the family. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the button. What did he want? To apologize? To gloat? I answered anyway, my voice rough from sleep. Hello? His voice boomed through the line, loud and furious, like a storm rolling in. Julian, why the hell did they fire you? Haven't they read the damn contract? I froze, the words sinking in slow and heavy. Raphael didn't know. He hadn't been in that boardroom, hadn't seen Elara's blank stare or Cassandra's smirk. I let the question hang there, not sure how to answer or if I even should. I don't know, Raphael, I said finally, keeping my tone steady. You'd have to ask them. He cursed under his breath, something about those girls ruining everything, but I barely heard it. My mind was already racing back to that merger clause Marcus tipped me off about, the one buried in my contract. Raphael's anger meant something big was coming, and I had a feeling I was holding the key to it. I got out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand from the call. The house felt too big, too silent without Elara's usual chatter or the clink of her coffee mug. I made myself a pot of coffee, the smell filling the air as I replayed Raphael's words. Haven't they read the damn contract? He sounded panicked, not just mad, like he knew something they didn't. I poured a cup and sat at the table, staring out the gray sky. Yesterday, I'd been blindsided, kicked out like trash. But now, I was starting to see the cracks in their plan. That subsidiary deal from 5 years ago wasn't just some footnote. It was a lifeline, and I was still tied to it, co-chairman of the IP holding with control over everything that made Crimson and Vale worth a damn. I took a sip, the bitterness matching the taste in my mouth from how they treated me. If Raphael was this worked up, it meant Elara and Cassandra had no idea what they'd stepped into, and I wasn't about to tell them. My phone buzzed again, a text from Marcus this time. Raphael just called me too. He's losing it. Said the girl screwed up big. I smirked, typing back. He called me first. What's he saying? Marcus's reply came quick. Kept asking about the merger terms. Think he's worried about the patents. The patents? Of course. Crimson and Vale wasn't just a name. It was a brand built on tech designs and trademarks, all locked up in that subsidiary I'd helped acquire. Without my signature, they couldn't license anything, couldn't move forward on new deals. I set the phone down and leaned back, the coffee warming my hands. Yesterday, I'd felt like a fool, walking out of that boardroom with my tail between my legs. But today, I was starting to feel like the one in control. Raphael's call wasn't just a rant, it was a warning, one Elara and Cassandra hadn't heard yet. I wondered how long it would take them to figure it out, how long before they came crawling back. I spent the rest of the morning pacing the house, my mind spinning with what-ifs. What if they tried to fight it? What if they called their fancy lawyers? I didn't know much about legal stuff, but I knew enough to trust Marcus and Raphael. If he was this mad, it meant the contract was ironclad. I stopped by the window again, watching a delivery truck rumble down the street. My whole life had been about keeping things steady, fixing problems at work, smoothing things over with Elara when she got stressed, even biting my tongue when Cassandra snapped at me. But steady didn't matter anymore. They'd pushed me out, and now they were about to find out what that cost them. My phone rang again. Raphael, round 2. I picked up, ready this time. Julian, He said, quieter now, like he'd worn himself out. "I'm sorry about this. I didn't know they'd pull something so stupid." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "It's done," I said. "But what's in that contract, Raphael? What's got you so riled up?" He paused, then let out a dry laugh. "You're still co-chair of the subsidiary. They can't run the company without you." I didn't say anything, just let that sink in. He was right, and they didn't even know it yet. I was still reeling from Raphael's call when the reality of it all started to settle in, heavy and real, like a weight I could feel in my bones. Elara and Cassandra had fired me without a second thought, but now they were about to find out what that really meant. It was late afternoon when Marcus texted me again. They're in a meeting with the lawyers. Word is they just read the contract. I could picture it, Elara sitting stiff at the head of the table, Cassandra pacing like a caged animal. Both of them staring at those pages like they'd turned to poison. I didn't have to be there to know what they'd found. 5 years ago, when we bought the tech subsidiary to beef up Crimson & Vale's portfolio, I'd been named co-chairman of it. It wasn't a big deal back then, just a title Raphael threw in to keep things smooth during the merger. But now, it was everything. That subsidiary owned all the intellectual property rights, the patents, the trademarks, the designs that kept the company alive. Without my sign-off, they couldn't do a damn thing. I sat on the couch, the contract spread out on the coffee table in front of me, and let that sink in. They tried to cut me out, but they'd locked themselves in a cage instead. I leaned forward, running my finger over the words on page 17. Julian Rivera, appointed co-chairman with full authority over subsidiary assets. It was right there, plain as day, signed and stamped. I remembered that day vaguely, Raphael laughing over beers after the deal closed, saying I'd earned it. I hadn't thought much of it then. I was just happy to be part of the team. But Elara and Cassandra, they'd never bothered to dig that deep. They'd taken over the company from Raphael last month, all smug and sure of themselves, and figured they could toss me aside like yesterday's news. I wondered what their faces looked like now. Pale, probably, with that pinched look Elara got when she was stressed, and Cassandra's mouth twisted tight with anger. They brought in some hotshot lawyer from New York, Naomi, to help with the transition. I'd met her once, cold as ice, with a handshake that felt like a challenge. She'd be the one breaking the news. I bet her voice was flat as she told them they were screwed. I got up and walked to the kitchen, needing to move, to think. The house was still too quiet, Elara's absence like a ghost hanging around. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped it open, and took a long swig. What were they doing right now? Yelling at each other? Blaming Naomi? I could almost hear Cassandra's voice, sharp and loud. How did we miss this? And Elara, quieter, trying to stay calm, even though her hands would be shaking. They'd thought they were so smart, firing me in front of everyone like that, making it a show. But they didn't know the half of it. Without my approval, they couldn't renew licensing deals, couldn't push new products, couldn't even access the bank accounts tied to the subsidiary's assets. It was all frozen, and I was the only one with the key. I took another sip, the cold bottle sweating in my hand, and felt a strange mix of anger and satisfaction bubbling up. They'd humiliated me, but now they were the ones stuck. I decided to keep my mouth shut. After that, complete silence, no matter how much they tried to pull me back in. The day after Marcus's text about Naomi freaking out, my inbox started lighting up. First came an email from Cassandra, short and snippy, like she was doing me a favor. "Julian, we need to discuss your exit terms. Call me." Exit terms? I almost laughed. She still thought she was in charge, like I was some loose end she could tie up with a quick chat. I didn't reply. Then Elara texted, her words careful, like she'd rehearsed them. "Can we talk? This got out of hand." Out of hand? She'd sat there while her sister called me lazy and kicked me out of the company I'd helped build. I stared at the message for a minute, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't type anything back. I tossed the phone on the couch and walked away. They didn't deserve my words. Not yet. If they wanted to squirm, I'd let them. I needed to clear my head. So I drove into town, the familiar streets blurring past as I replayed everything in my mind. The contract, Raphael's call, Marcus's updates, it was all piling up, but I wasn't ready to act. Not until I knew exactly what was happening on their end. I pulled into a little coffee shop I used to hit with Gwendolyn, Raphael's old assistant, back when we'd grab lunch between meetings. She'd always liked me, said I was the only one who treated her like a person instead of a secretary. On a whim, I called her. "Julian," she answered, her voice warm and surprised. "I heard what those girls did. You okay?" I smiled despite myself. "I'm fine, Gwendolyn. Just figuring things out. What's the word over there?" She laughed, low and knowing. "Chaos, honey. Absolute chaos." She told me clients were calling nonstop, confused about delayed contracts. Suppliers were holding shipments, waiting for approvals that weren't coming. Investors were spooked, whispering about pulling out. "They're running around like headless chickens," she said. "And that Naomi, she's snipping at everyone, but she's got no answers." I ordered a coffee while we talked, the barista sliding it across the counter with a nod. I took a sip, letting Gwendolyn's words paint the picture. Chaos. Good. They brought this on themselves, thinking they could toss me aside and keep everything running smooth. I thanked her and hung up, settling into a corner booth with my drink. Elara's text kept nagging at me. This got out of hand, like it was an accident, like she hadn't chosen to sit there and let it happen. I'd loved her once, really loved her. Those early years when we'd stay up late, dreaming about the future, her head on my shoulder. But now, she was a stranger, and I wasn't sure I wanted her back in my life, even if she begged. They could send all the emails and texts they wanted. I wasn't budging. I had been quiet for days, letting Elara and Cassandra stew in the mess they'd made, when I finally decided it was time to break my silence. But not to them, not yet. The board had been emailing me nonstop, polite at first, then pushy, asking for clarity on the operational delays rocking Crimson and Vale. I could have ignored them too, let the whole thing collapse under its own weight. But something in me wanted them to know exactly what was happening and why. So I sat down at my desk, the contract spread out like a map, and typed up a reply. Not a rant, not a plea, just the facts, cold and clear. From me, Julian Rivera, co-chairman of the subsidiary they'd forgotten about. I laid it out. The merger clause from 5 years ago, my legal authority over the intellectual property, and how, without my signature, nothing could move. Not the trademarks, not the patents, not a single deal. I didn't ask for my job back or beg for forgiveness. I ended it with one line. I'm asking for accountability, not reinstatement. Then I hit send, copied every board member, and leaned back in my chair, the weight of it lifting just a little. They'd wanted me gone. Now they'd see what that cost. I was in the middle of making coffee, the pot gurgling on the counter, when my phone rang. Elara's name flashing on the screen. I stared at it for a second, the sound cutting through the quiet morning like a warning. She hadn't called since the firing, just sent those careful texts I'd ignored. Part of me wanted to let it ring, keep the silence I'd been holding on to, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up, keeping my voice flat. "Yeah?" There was a pause. Then her voice came through, softer than I expected, strained like she hadn't slept. "Julian, can we meet, please?" I didn't say anything right away, just let her words hang there. Meet? After everything? I could hear the desperation under her tone, the crack in that cool front she'd kept up in the boardroom. "Why?" I asked, finally, leaning against the counter. She sighed, a shaky sound. "This whole thing, it's a misunderstanding. I want to fix it." A misunderstanding. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just said, "Okay, noon, that place on 5th. She agreed quick, like she was afraid I'd change her mind, and hung up. I got to the restaurant early, a little spot we used to go to back when things were good, with soft lighting and tables, the kind of place that felt warm once. Now it just felt like a stage for whatever this was. I sat in a corner booth, sipping water, watching the door. Elara walked in right on time, her coat pulled tight around her, her face pale and tired. She saw me and forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes, then slid into the seat across from me. "Hey," she said, her voice light, like we were just catching up. I nodded, keeping my expression blank. "Hey." She fidgeted with her napkin, then leaned in a little. "Julian, I'm sorry about how this went down. It wasn't supposed to be like that." I raised an eyebrow, waiting. She kept going, her words tumbling out now. "Cassandra pushed for it, and I didn't know how to stop her. We can work this out, right? You don't have to freeze everything." I listened, my hands still on the table, not smiling, not moving. She was trying to charm me, like she used to when she'd messed up. Big eyes, soft voice, all of it. But it didn't hit the same anymore. The waiter came by, and she ordered a salad, her fingers twisting the menu before she handed it over. I got a burger, keeping it simple. When he left, she tried again. "We need you, Julian. The company's a mess without those approvals. Can't we just put this behind us?" I took a sip of water, letting her stew for a second. Then I heard Cassandra's voice in my head, lazy, and saw Elara's blank stare from that day. I set the glass down, slow and deliberate. "A mess, huh? Funny how that works." She blinked, caught off guard. But before she could answer, I kept going. "You didn't say a word when she fired me. You just sat there. Now it's a misunderstanding?" Her face flushed and she looked down, picking at the napkin again. "I didn't want it to happen like that," she mumbled. "Cassandra said we needed a clean break, and Naomi backed her up. I thought—" She stopped, like she knew it sounded weak. I leaned forward, my voice low. "You thought what? That I'd just take it?" She didn't answer right away, and then the food came, breaking the tension for a second. I took a bite of the burger, chewing slow, watching her poke at her salad like she'd lost her appetite. She glanced up, trying a new angle. "Cassandra's the one who pushed it. She convinced me it was best for the company. Naomi said it was legal." I swallowed, setting the burger down. "Naomi's wrong, and Cassandra doesn't get to pin this on anyone. You both signed off on it." Her eyes widened, like she hadn't expected me to push back so hard. "Julian, please," she said, her voice cracking. "We can fix this. Just sign off on the IP stuff and we'll figure out a role for you." A role? Like I was some kid begging for a spot at the table. I wiped my hands on a napkin, looking her dead in the eye. "You fired me like a stranger, Elara. Now deal with the consequences." She went still, her fork halfway to her mouth, then set it down. "You're really going to let the company fall apart?" she asked, almost whispering. I shrugged, taking another bite. "Not my call anymore. You made it yours." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time, and I could tell she didn't know what to say. The charm wasn't working, and the excuses were running dry. I finished my burger while she sat there picking at her food, the silence between us thick and heavy. When the check came, I paid for mine and stood up. "Good luck," I said, same as I'd said in the boardroom, and walked out. She didn't follow. I didn't look back. I was halfway through breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, nothing special, when my phone rang again. Raphael's name popped up, and I knew this wasn't just another rant. I wiped my hands on a napkin and answered, keeping my voice steady. "Hey, Raphael." He didn't waste time. "Julian, we've got an emergency board meeting tomorrow. I need you there. Not as an employee, as executive chairman of the IP holding. Can you do it?" I paused, the fork halfway to my mouth. Executive chairman? Not back to my old job, not begging for scraps, but a seat above Elara and Cassandra with real power? I set the fork down, my mind racing. "What's the deal?" I asked. He sighed, heavy and tired. "The company's bleeding out. Clients are gone, staff's leaving, and the board's done with the girl's mess. We're voting on new terms. Cassandra out of client ops, Elara down to COO. You in?" I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. This was big, bigger than I'd expected. "Yeah," I said finally, "I'm in, but it's on my terms." He laughed, a short, rough sound. "Good, see you tomorrow." He hung up, and I sat there, the eggs going cold, feeling the shift happen right under me. The meeting was early, 9 a.m., and I got there on time, dressed sharp, suit, tie, the works. The boardroom felt different now, not like the place where they'd kicked me out. I walked in, head up, and saw the faces turn, some surprised, some relieved. Raphael sat at the head, his jaw tight, and nodded at me. Elara was there, pale and quiet, her hands folded in front of her. Cassandra sat next to her, arms crossed, glaring like she could burn a hole through me. I took the seat Raphael pointed to, right near him, and waited. He started fast. "We're here because Crimson and Veil is dying," he said, his voice cutting through the room. "Julian's notice froze everything, and we can't move without him. I'm proposing he comes back as executive chairman of the IP arm. Cassandra's off client ops, Elara to COO. Vote it now." The room went still. Then hands went up. Raphael's crew first, then a few others. It passed quick and clean. Cassandra shoved her chair back and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Elara didn't move, just stared at the table. I didn't say much during the meeting, just listened as Raphael laid out the damage. Lost deals, empty desks, angry investors. When it was my turn, I kept it short. "I'll unfreeze the IP when we've got new terms that work. I'm not here to sink it, I'm here to fix it." Nods around the table, even from the ones who'd hesitated. Elara finally looked up, her eyes meeting mine for a second before dropping again. She knew it was over. Her big takeover, her sister's grand plan, all of it. The meeting wrapped, and people filed out, Raphael clapping me on the shoulder as he left. "Good to have you back," he said. I nodded, but I wasn't back, not like before. This was new, and it was mine. I woke up the next morning with a clear head, the board's decision still fresh and real. The sun was just creeping through the blinds as I made coffee, the pot hissing like it was cheering me on. Executive chairman. Those words kept rolling around in my mind, heavy but good. Elara and Cassandra had tried to shove me out, but now I was back, higher up than ever, and they couldn't touch me. I took my mug to the desk and started planning. The company was a mess, but I wasn't here to just patch it up. I wanted it stronger, better, and free of the entitled nonsense they brought in. I pulled out my laptop and started typing, laying out a new structure. Merit-based hires, clear rules, no more family favors. Elara could stay as COO, but she'd answer to me now. And Cassandra, her apology email came in overnight. "Julian, I'm sorry, let's talk." But I didn't bother replying. She was out of the game, and I had work to do. First thing, I called Marcus. "I'm making you CFO. You in?" He laughed, loud and easy. "Hell yes. When do I start?" "Today, right now. Get in, clean up the books." Next, I texted Harper, the department head who'd offered to jump ship with me. "VP of Brand Strategy. You still mean it?" Her reply came fast. "Absolutely. I'm there." I spent the morning sketching it out. Cut the dead weight, bring in fresh faces, rebuild from the ground up. The old Crimson and Veil was gone. This was mine now. Months had passed since the board meeting, since I'd taken the reins as executive chairman, and Crimson and Veil was finally breathing again. I woke up early, the house still dark, and felt a quiet kind of strength settling in me. Something steady, like the ground after a storm. Clients were back, loyal and steady, their trust rebuilt with every deal I'd signed off on. Investors had returned too, pumping money in once they saw the numbers climb. Elara stayed distant, doing her job as COO, but never pushing me, never daring to step out of line. Cassandra was long gone, her apology email still unanswered in my inbox. I didn't need her groveling. I'd moved past it. Today wasn't about them anymore. It was about locking in a legacy, making sure no one could ever be tossed aside like I was. I sat at my desk and started writing the final piece. New bylaws, a clause to protect the company and me for good. The office was buzzing when I got in. Marcus had the books in shape, his grin wide. "Numbers are up again. Best quarter in years." I nodded, flipping through the report. Sales strong, costs down, everything clicking. "Good work," I told him, and meant it. I called a meeting, just me, Marcus, Harper, and a couple board reps. Elara had to sit in too, her chair squeaking as she settled across from me. I laid out the bylaws. "This protects us," I said. "No more power grabs. No more firing people without cause. The IP stays with the company, but only under leadership that earns it." The vote was fast, unanimous, and I signed it right there, the pen heavy in my hand. It was done. After, I walked the floor, talking to staff, hearing them out. They smiled now, not the fake kind from before, but real ones, like they trusted me. One guy, a new hire, stopped me. "Thanks for this, Julian. Feels different here." I clapped his shoulder. That's the point. I stayed late, finishing up emails. Elara left without a word, her office dark when I passed by. I didn't mind the quiet. It gave me space to think. The bylaws were filed, the legacy clause locked in. No one could be discarded like I was, not without a fight. I leaned back in my chair, the desk lamp casting a soft glow, and let myself smile. Not the polite one I'd used that day they fired me, but a real one, small and sure. Revenge hadn't been the goal, not in the end. I'd wanted them to feel it, sure, and they had. Cassandra sidelined, Elara humbled. But this was better. I'd taken their mess and turned it into something stronger, something that would last. I shut down my computer, grabbed my coat, and headed out. Driving home, the city lights blurred past, and I felt lighter than I had in months. The house was still empty, but it didn't weigh on me now. I'd rewritten the rules, set the terms, and kept that polite smile for when I needed it. Tomorrow, I'd keep building, and they'd never forget who held it together.